listening to Johns Hopkins Digital Storytelling, and I'm Andrew Fogel. The words carbon sequestration might make you think of a far-off rainforest or experimental power plant. But for a lot of Americans, something as nearby as these and these working together could be local heroes in the fight to draw down greenhouse gases. That's according to a new study. I headed to Berry County, Missouri to talk with a trusted source for more. Victor Arno knows his land and his cattle.
When I was young, we sold some wheat, but never any corn or any other cash crop. Everything was sold through livestock. You know, you fed all you could raise.
At 92, he's as busy as ever. That scraping sound you hear is Arno clearing paint off window panes he's switching out for the cold months. The farm south of Monette he runs as a cow-calf operation with his son and grandson has been in the family since 1888. I should add, it's my family too. Arno is my maternal grandfather, Papa to my cousins and I. He's lived more than half of that history. In that time, he's seen the landscape change. Once, in the late 1960s, his father had a woodlot turned to open meadow, all in one fell swoop.
Dad had, just a year or two before he died, he had 60 acres or so sprayed with an airplane down there at Gunner, just to kill the timber, which wasn't that valuable, and plant. The guy had come back in with an airplane and scattered seed after he had sprayed it. And amazingly, you know, got a good stand of seed.
But one patch has stood firm all these years.
When you get to our place, the first 40 has just got scattered big trees, a lot of them big, and it's just clear underneath them. And that is a perfect picture or example of pasture and trees together, you know, because there's part of it that has a real good stand of grass under the trees. Some of it is just mostly weeds that are growing under those trees, but we get a lot of good out of that 40 acres.
This use of land is called silvopasture, when cattle and other grazers eat and excrete. They're doing it under boughs and branches instead of open sky. For farmers like Arno, silvopasture has some drawbacks compared to conventional open fields. You can't really plow and sow it, and besides this,
except a lot of moisture. You can tell it when you get close to them along the fence row. The crop's not near as good out there for 30 feet. Tree roots getting all the water.
But silvopasture has its upsides too. Arno cites protection from summer heat.
Shade is pretty good for livestock. 2 or 3 months makes a difference whether they got that.
And depending on the species, the trees themselves can serve as fodder.
This kind of weather, they'll eat oak leaves or walnut leaves or anything that they normally wouldn't like to eat, but they will eat it.
A Department of Agriculture fact sheet also lists shorter forest rotations, enhanced nutrition in shaded cool season forest plants, and wind and weather protection. A team of experts in agroforestry, ecology, and soil argue there's a potential benefit for us all, capturing carbon. In an October 2023 article in the journal Frontiers in Sustainable Food Systems, the researchers looked at the wetter eastern half of the US, to the right of the 98th meridian. They identified over 28 million hectares, that's pasture, grassland, and marginal cropland, that was forested before Euro-American settlement, that could be turned into silvopasture. The team also worked out what kinds of trees would make sense, economically and environmentally, for different USDA hardiness zones. So northern Minnesota could support willow, which cattle can eat. Southern Florida is good for mulberries. These are another fodder tree, and also longleaf pine, a timber source. In temperate Zone 6, where Arno's farm is located, you can grow pecans, chestnuts, and black walnuts, things you'd find at a grocery store. With a view to things like farmer awareness and demand for forestry products, the researchers modeled two scenarios. A base case, which assumes current market demand, expects 20% of available land turned into silvopasture. In a full adoption scenario, with increased demand for wood, nuts, and the like, 90% of the land is converted. That economic piece is key. Arno has first-hand experience with the volatility.
All they're buying now is white oak and walnuts. Red oak, black oak is practically worthless.
The researchers' model showed that most of the 9 tree species they looked at would pay for themselves eventually. Some, like the fodder trees willow and mulberry, could do that in under a decade, even if planted right now. Throw in a government subsidy of $100 per ton of carbon sequestered, and 5 could meet an important investment threshold, an internal rate of return of 7% over 10 years. As the study authors put it, a complete economic analysis, including quantifying opportunity costs, would be important for any given operation. But they do make clear that, at least in certain conditions, silvopasture makes business sense. So, what does this mean for greenhouse gases? First, a little perspective. As cattlemen will be quick to tell you, the US herd accounts for a pretty small share of the country's emissions, about 2.2%, according to the EPA in 2019. That's around a fourth of what light-duty trucks alone produce. The study's base case would suck up 4.9 teragrams of CO2 equivalents a year. At full adoption, that ramps up to 25.6 teragrams. That second number is about 11% of annual emissions from American cattle. The authors stress these figures are conservative. They reflect only the greenhouse gases gobbled up by trees themselves, not knock-on effects for sequestration in surrounding soil. Against a warming world, silvopasture might not be a silver bullet. But while we negotiate our new atmospheric social contract, we have to weigh different goods. The nutrition of meat, say, or the cultural importance of small family farms. Silvopasture, really a technique for raising meat and trees in one space, is one way to help strike a balance. As the fall shadows lengthen over this corner of the Ozarks, I'm struck by another value we shouldn't overlook. The beauty of land like Victor Arno's. Andrew Fogel, Johns Hopkins Digital Storytelling.